Delete it. Delete it right now. What is that? In a glamorous hotel ballroom, a man in a tuxedo screams, desperately trying to shield the screen. But the massive display shows an unbelievable scene. Him and his mistress, tangled in hotel sheets, laughing uncontrollably. Worse, their conversation is being broadcast live, detailing a plot to drive his wife to a mental breakdown with drugs, abuse the system for an involuntary psychiatric hold, and have her forcibly institutionalized. The guests gasp. The mistress, who had been hailed as a genius writer, collapses to the floor in her wedding dress. Just then, the sharp, rhythmic click of high heels cuts through the darkness. "Hello, you two." And "Hello, Madison." It was the voice of the wife they thought was dead to the world. No, it was the voice of America's greatest avenger, Isabella, as she gripped the microphone. This was the painful, exquisite moment her husband's arrogance turned to ruin. Where would this twisted tale lead? A dry thud echoed as a stack of papers was thrown violently onto the marble coffee table. The sound seemed to represent the utter insignificance of their 5-year marriage. Dazzling afternoon sunlight streamed through the large windows of the luxury Manhattan penthouse, but the air inside was thick and heavy, like a room filled with mold. Sunk deep into the sofa, Ryan's soon-to-be ex-husband, Ryan Thompson, ran a hand through his hair in frustration and spoke. "Isabella, let's just end this. I can't take it anymore." His voice was a mixture of irritation and a strange sense of liberation. He furrowed his brow, looking like the tragic hero of his own story, and let out an exaggerated sigh. His gaze wandered not to his wife, Isabella, but to an expensive painting on the living room wall. Isabella slowly set down the coffee cup she was holding. The clink of ceramic on the saucer sounded unnaturally loud. "Can't take it anymore? What do you mean?" Her voice was eerily calm. That placidness seemed to grate on Ryan's nerves more than anything. He shot to his feet, his voice rising to a yell. "Being with you is draining all my artistic inspiration. You call yourself a writer, but you're so gloomy. I come home and I can't even breathe. I can't get my lines into my head." Ryan possessed a remarkable talent for blaming his own failures on his wife. Despite being a struggling actor for 10 years, unable to land a single decent supporting role, and constantly going to auditions, he always claimed the world just didn't recognize his true potential. More accurately, he wanted to believe that his wife, Isabella, was the one holding him back. At that moment, a rustling sound came from a corner of the living room. It was Ryan's mother, Sharon. Even in the midst of this serious situation where her son was demanding a divorce, she was engrossed in opening a cardboard box from a home shopping channel. The sound of a box cutter tearing through tape felt sharper to Isabella's ears than Ryan's shouting. "Oh, my Ryan is absolutely right," Sharon chimed in without looking up. "A woman should be a ray of sunshine in the home, supporting her man. But you just lock yourself away in a corner every day, writing. It's all your fault my son isn't a top star. All your fault." Sharon admired a new leather handbag she had pulled from the box, clicking her tongue. That bag, too, was bought with money Isabella had earned. Yet, there was not a shred of gratitude from her. Instead, her face was filled with an audacious sense of entitlement, as if it were her right to spend her daughter-in-law's money. Isabella watched them quietly. She felt neither anger nor sadness. Instead, a cold clarity spread through her, as if her mind were becoming transparent. For years, she had completely hidden the fact that she was the best-selling mystery author, Kay, who had shaken the American publishing world. She knew all too well what would happen if her husband's money-grubbing family discovered her true wealth. But her wealth wasn't the only thing she had hidden. She already knew this family's ugliest secrets. "So you want a divorce, is that it?" Isabella asked curtly. Ryan was taken aback for a moment, her reaction not what he had expected. He must have thought she would cling to him, crying and begging. The arrogance in his eyes was clear. "Who do you think has been paying your bills? Bailing you out of trouble? Buying you designer clothes, and taking care of you? You can't survive without me. Yeah, divorce. And don't even think about alimony. I should be the one getting paid for emotional distress after putting up with you for so long," Ryan said, completely shameless. Sharon jumped in. "That's right. Alimony? What a joke. You came here with nothing, so you'll leave with nothing. Oh, and make sure you sign the deed to this apartment over to my Ryan before you go. Consider it a small price to pay for him taking care of you all this time." Isabella had to fight to keep from laughing in their faces. This penthouse had been hers long before the marriage, and every piece of clothing Ryan wore, down to his underwear, was paid for with her credit card. But she had no intention of wasting her energy arguing with them. What they needed now wasn't persuasion or dialogue. It was a single, decisive push off the cliff's edge. And to deliver that blow, she had to play the part of the defeated wife for just a little longer. Fine, let's get a divorce. Isabella picked up a high-end fountain pen from the table. With a steady hand, she signed the name Isabella Thompson on the signature line of the divorce papers. Before the ink was dry, she slid the documents toward Ryan. Is this what you want? Now, please get out. Get out of my house. A moment of silence fell. Ryan and Sharon stared at each other, their mouths agape. It was all so easy, so anticlimactic. Their eyes flickered with confusion. But then, a smirk spread across Ryan's face. He interpreted Isabella's composed attitude as the resignation of a loser. He believed she was intimidated by his forcefulness. Is that right? You should have just done that from the start. See? You really are nothing without me. Humming a tune, Ryan walked into the bedroom. He opened a large suitcase and began packing his clothes. The closet was full of expensive suits, limited edition sneakers, and pricey watches, all gifts from Isabella, but he gathered them as if they had always been his. Just then, his eyes fell upon the vanity. Isabella's drawer was slightly ajar, and inside, a black card glinted dully. It was the legendary, by invitation only Centurion card. Said to have no credit limit, held only by the top echelon of America's wealthy. Ryan swallowed hard. No matter how much he had begged her to let him borrow it, Isabella had always refused. She had pretended not to have it, pretended it wasn't important. There was no way he was leaving that behind now that they were divorcing. Ryan glanced toward the bedroom door. He could hear Sharon in the living room, still hurling insults at Isabella. I'm taking this. It's compensation for all the trouble I went through putting up with this woman. He quickly reached out and snatched the black card. The cool metal sent a jolt of excitement through him. He slipped the card into his back pocket. A wave of euphoria washed over him, as if he had just conquered the world. With this card, he could start living like a top star immediately. He trembled with anticipation at the thought of going to his new woman, Madison, and showing it off. Mom, let's go. Ryan emerged with all his luggage. Sharon quickly gathered her things. In her hands were not only the new handbag but also a crystal vase from the living room display case. They were a truly shameless, hyena-like mother and son. What a cold, loveless woman. Go ahead, grow old and die alone with your gloomy writing. Sharon spat as she walked out the door, hurling insults until the very end. Ryan left without a single backward glance at Isabella. Bam! The sound of the front door slamming shut echoed through the living room. Once they were gone, a heavy silence returned. But this silence was different. The suffocating humidity had cleared, replaced by a cool, clean air. Isabella slowly rose from the sofa. The emotionless mask fell from her face, replaced by a chillingly predatory aura. She walked to the window and opened the curtains. She could see their car pulling out of the parking garage below. She could faintly make out Sharon in the passenger seat, clutching the crystal vase and laughing. A slight smile touched Isabella's lips. It wasn't a smile of mirth, but the baring of fangs of a beast about to pounce. Go ahead, laugh all you want now. It will be the last time you ever do. Isabella pulled her smartphone from her pocket. Without hesitation, she hit a speed dial number. Before the second ring, a polite voice answered. Thank you for calling the Centurion Private Client Desk for Isabella K. How may I assist you? Isabella's voice was low and firm, without a trace of a tremor. I need to report my black card as stolen. The operator seemed momentarily confused. Usually, when a family member took a card, the request was to report it lost or temporarily freeze it. A stolen card report was a serious matter that could lead to criminal charges. Ma'am, are you certain? Could a family member perhaps have borrowed it? If we report it as stolen, the police will be notified immediately, and the person who uses it. Isabella cut the operator off without mercy. No, not family. A complete stranger who just signed divorce papers. He took my property without my consent. That is unequivocally theft. Isabella paused, taking a breath as she stared out the window. Ryan's car was already out of sight. I authorize you to provide location data to the police so they can be dispatched immediately if anyone attempts to use that card. I want the most aggressive measures taken. I will not be negotiating a settlement. Understood, ma'am. We will process the stolen card report immediately and request cooperation from the local police precinct. After hanging up, Isabella walked to her study. Behind a bookshelf that covered an entire wall was a hidden safe. With practiced movements, she entered the code and opened the heavy door. Inside were not stacks of cash or jewels. but envelopes and small flash drives. Evidence of Ryan's affair, collected by a private investigator. Recordings of Sharon badmouthing her to neighbors. Copies of receipts from Ryan's profligate nights out on the town. But the real bombshell was something else. Isabella picked up Ryan's tablet, which he had left on the living room table. The fool had been so preoccupied with stealing the card that he had forgotten his own device, a device that was automatically synced to his smartphone through the cloud. With a trembling finger, Isabella tapped the photos icon. The thumbnails that appeared were nauseating. Photos of Ryan in a hotel bed, embracing a woman she now recognized. It was Madison Clark, the woman he had introduced as his stylist. In the photos, Madison was wearing a designer scarf that Isabella had cherished, a scarf she thought she had lost. Isabella played a video file. On the screen, Ryan and Madison were drinking champagne, laughing hysterically. Their conversation was enough to make Isabella's blood run cold. "Hey, when are you finally getting rid of that gloomy bitch? I want to make my debut." "Just a little longer, babe. The drugs I've been slipping her have made her completely unstable. Soon, I'll claim she's a danger to herself and use my spousal authority to have her committed for an involuntary psychiatric hold. If we can make her act crazy in front of a psychiatrist, we can legally isolate her from the world." "Really? Then her whole life will be ours." "Oh, this is perfect." "Exactly. And that manuscript she's been writing? We'll publish it under your name. Isabella Thompson goes crazy and gets locked away, and you emerge as a brilliant new literary star. It's flawless." The man and woman in the video hugged each other, their laughter echoing with pure evil. Isabella paused the video. Their smiling faces on the screen looked grotesquely distorted. This wasn't just about money. They had planned to destroy her mind with drugs, legally imprison her, and steal her very soul, her work. While not murder, their plan was a clear assassination of her spirit. Isabella's knuckles turned white as she gripped the tablet. The feeling of betrayal was a luxury she could no longer afford. There was only one emotion she felt now, a burning, all-consuming hatred. A dark, crimson flame flickered in the depths of her eyes. Isabella went to the kitchen and poured a glass of red wine. She raised the glass high, toasting the empty air as if to an invisible audience of demons. "Congratulations, Ryan Thompson and Madison Clark. You've just punched your one-way ticket to the hell of your own making." She downed the wine in one gulp. The bitter taste ignited her fighting spirit. This was just the beginning. The black card they had stolen would soon become the very handcuffs that shackled their wrists. The time for their reckoning was not far off. The next morning at 11 a.m., in a hotel suite with a panoramic view of the New York City skyline, a sliver of late-morning sun pierced through the curtains. Empty champagne bottles and discarded clothes littered the floor, evidence of the previous night's revelry. Ryan awoke, buried in the crisp white hotel sheets. His head throbbed with a hangover, but his spirits were soaring. He shook Madison, who was sleeping soundly beside him. "Madison, wake up. We're going shopping." Madison mumbled and rubbed her eyes. Before they were even halfway open, Ryan dangled the black card in front of her face. The heavy metallic card caught the morning light and flashed. "Here, my wedding present to you." Madison's eyes flew wide open. She sprang out of bed and snatched the card from his hand, the cool metal on her fingertips. And there, at the bottom of the card, embossed in Roman letters, was the name Isabella K. Thompson. The name gave her a slight pause, but what did it matter? This was the legendary black card, the one with no limit. "Hey, are you sure we can really use this? What if Isabella freezes it?" Madison asked, a hint of suspicion in her eyes. Ryan scoffed, leaning back against the headboard. "Come on, that woman doesn't have the guts. She's probably too busy crying her eyes out, missing her meal ticket. Besides, this is my compensation for putting up with her all these years. It's mine now. Use it as much as you want. You could buy out every store on Fifth Avenue for all I care." At Ryan's bravado, Madison squealed and gave him a passionate kiss. "You're the best. I'm really going to buy everything, so don't you dare stop me." She carefully placed the card in her handbag and skipped off to the bathroom. Listening to her sing in the shower, Ryan lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. A smile spread across his face just thinking about it. The drama series that would be released under Madison's name, with him in the starring role walking the red carpet. He was finally convinced his life was on the right track. "Isabella, you were just a stain on my life. Now I finally feel alive." When Madison emerged, Ryan took her place in the bathroom. He turned the water on hot and stood under the shower, singing at the top of his lungs. He never imagined that his song was a dirge for his own downfall. Drowned out by the sound of the shower, He completely missed the ringing of his smartphone on the living room table. An hour later, Madison stood in the middle of Fifth Avenue. She wore a trench coat she had secretly stolen from Isabella's closet, her chin held high, a pair of sunglasses perched on her nose. She felt the eyes of passers-by on her and mistook their glances for gazes of admiration as she stepped through the heavy revolving doors of a luxury brand boutique. The store was quiet and cool. The faint scent of expensive perfume and the sparkle of jewels under bright lights greeted her. Madison's heels clicked on the polished floor as she headed for the display of the most expensive watches. A sales associate approached and gave a polite nod. "Welcome, madam. Are you looking for a particular model?" Madison lowered her sunglasses slightly and said with an air of arrogance, "Show me your most expensive one, the one with all the diamonds. My fiancé just landed the lead role in a major new series. We're shopping for a celebratory gift, so don't show me anything second-rate." The associates exchanged subtle glances. Her clothes were flashy, but her vulgar speech and attitude betrayed her. The veteran staff knew instantly she wasn't genuine clientele, but they maintained their professional smiles and retrieved the keys to the display case. "Of course, madam. Right this way." The associate placed a diamond-encrusted watch worth over $50,000 and a limited edition handbag priced at $20,000 on a velvet tray. Madison's eyes gleamed with greed. Flashes of her life living like a maid in Isabella's home, constantly watching her expression, ran through her mind. "From now on, I'm the master. All of this is mine. I'll take this, and that scarf over there. Wrap them all up." Madison presented the black card without a moment's hesitation. The associate took the card reverently with both hands. The weight of the card, the name engraved on the surface, Isabella K. Thompson. The associate paused. It was the name of the famous best-selling author. This woman in front of him couldn't possibly be that author. Isabella K. was notoriously private, never showing her face to the public. And besides, the aura was completely different. "Ma'am, is this your card?" the associate asked politely. Madison's face flushed with anger. "I just told you, it's my fiancé's card. Haven't you heard of an authorized user? Just run the transaction. I'm a very busy woman." The associate asked no more questions and inserted the card into the terminal. Madison crossed her arms, tapping her foot impatiently, a triumphant smile on her face. But that smile shattered just 3 seconds later. A piercing alarm shrieked through the silent store. The terminal's screen flashed with a red warning message. "Stolen, lost card. Police notification required." The associate's expression instantly turned to ice. Without removing the card from the terminal, she pressed a silent alarm button under the counter. "Ma'am, the transaction was not approved. It says the card has been reported stolen." "What? That's impossible. Try it again. Your machine must be broken," Madison screamed. Her face beat red. A cold sweat trickled down her spine. Ryan had sworn it was his. Isabella couldn't have reported it this fast. Just then, 2 security guards in black suits hurried over from the entrance. "What's the situation here?" the head of security asked in a deep voice. Madison stumbled backward. The store manager calmly explained the situation. "Attempted fraudulent use of a reported stolen black card. We have followed protocol and contacted the police." "Wait, my fiancé gave this to me. He told me to use it. Don't you know Ryan Thompson, the actor?" Madison shrieked, swinging her handbag. But the guards were unfazed, grabbing both of her arms in a firm grip. Other shoppers began to gather, murmuring. Some pulled out their smartphones and started recording the spectacle. "What's that? His mistress, it seems. Tried to use the wife's stolen card and got caught. Wow, the nerve of some people. Who tries to use a stolen black card?" The whispered comments stabbed at her like knives. Madison's legs trembled with shame and fear. With a shaking hand, she pulled out her phone and tried to call Ryan, but the call just rang and rang. He wasn't picking up. That time he was spending happily singing in the shower felt longer than an eternity in hell to Madison. "Ryan, pick up the phone. Please." Then, the wail of sirens grew louder from outside. Soon, 2 uniformed NYPD officers entered the store. "We received a report about a stolen card. Who is the individual in possession of it?" The security guards pushed Madison forward. She collapsed to the floor as if on cue and started bawling. "It wasn't me. My fiancé gave it to me and told me to use it. I didn't steal anything." The police officer ignored her cries and retrieved the card still in the terminal. He radioed dispatch to confirm the cardholder's identity. A few moments later, a voice came back over the radio. "Confirmed contact with cardholder Isabella K. Thompson. She states the card was taken without permission by her ex-husband and that she wishes to press charges for theft and fraud against the user, requesting arrest for larceny and attempted fraud. The officer looked down at Madison and coldly read her rights. Madison Clark, you are under arrest for grand larceny and attempted fraud. You have the right to remain silent. No, let me go. It's not my fault. Ryan, you bastard, where are you? Click. Cold steel handcuffs snapped around Madison's wrists. Instead of the diamond watch she so desperately wanted, she got a pair of silver bracelets. She was hauled up like a sack of potatoes and dragged out of the store. Her screams echoed through the lobby and all the way to the waiting patrol car. Onlookers clicked their tongues and watched the scene unfold. Her final appearance, draped in fake luxury, was utterly pathetic and tragic. Meanwhile, back at the hotel, Ryan finally emerged from the shower and checked his phone. 20 missed calls, all from Madison. What the hell? Why was she calling me so much while she was shopping? Did she hit the limit? No, that's impossible. Grumbling, Ryan called her back. Her phone went straight to voicemail. A creeping sense of unease washed over him. At that moment, the hotel room phone rang. It was the front desk. Mr. Thompson, we have a call for you from the NYPD. Are you the guardian of a Miss Madison Clark? Ryan's heart dropped into his stomach. He scrambled to get dressed and rushed out of the hotel. He bit his nails the entire taxi ride to Fifth Avenue. He had no idea what was happening. Did Isabella report it? No way, not that timid woman. When he arrived, he saw Madison in the back of a police car, her face pressed against the window, sobbing uncontrollably. As Ryan stood there in a daze, a detective in the passenger seat rolled down the window and called out to him. You Ryan Thompson? Ryan nodded numbly. We were just about to come looking for you. Get in. You're coming down to the station for questioning. Wait, why? I haven't done anything. The detective scoffed and opened the car door. You're an accomplice who transferred and facilitated the use of a stolen card. The cardholder, Isabella K. Thompson, is pressing charges against you too, for theft. Ryan's legs gave out from under him. He stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to run. From the back of the patrol car, Madison saw him and shrieked, Ryan, you gave it to me. My life is ruined because of you. Ryan was shoved into the police car. In the cramped back seat, the two lovers glared at each other with hatred, now partners in crime. The patrol car, sirens blaring, pulled away from the glamorous shopping district. Their dream of a lavish shopping spree was shattered, leaving only a one-way ticket to a cold jail cell. The air in the interrogation room was heavy and stale. The fluorescent light flickering over the steel desk seemed to reflect the anxiety of those being questioned. Ryan, his hair disheveled and shirt soaked with sweat, spat saliva as he pleaded his innocence to the detective. He was a far cry from the top star persona he'd been enjoying in the hotel shower just hours before. He tapped his fingers nervously on the table. Detective, you have to believe me. It's a misunderstanding. I didn't steal it. She gave it to me as part of the divorce settlement. What's mine is hers, right? We're a married couple. She's just holding a grudge and reported it out of spite. Ryan's eyes bulged as he raised his voice, as if trying to convince himself of his own innocence. The veteran detective just smirked and continued flipping through a file. He looked at Ryan like an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. He tapped his pen on the desk. Mr. Thompson, you might want to brush up on the law. It's true that since your divorce isn't finalized, you are technically still married. That makes a criminal charge for the initial taking of the card complicated due to spousal property laws. But that's not the problem here. The detective gestured with his chin towards the holding cells. Through the bars, Madison could be seen, hair a mess, screaming. That woman over there is not your spouse. You gave the card you stole to her, and she used it. That makes you an accomplice to attempted fraud and larceny. You facilitated the illegal use of another person's credit card. Understand? The color drained from Ryan's face. The glimmer of hope he felt at the mention of spousal laws was once again plunged into despair. From her cell, Madison grabbed the bars and shrieked, Ryan Thompson! You told me it was okay. You told me to use it. Get me out of here. If I get a criminal record, you're going to be responsible. Her screams echoed through the precinct. Ryan wanted to cover his ears. The voice of the lover he had adored now sounded like a death knell from hell. The detective sighed wearily and picked up the phone. I'm going to call the victim. You can hear it from her yourself. He put the call on speakerphone. After a few rings, the line connected. A crackle of static, and then Isabella's voice, cold and composed, filled the room. Yes, detective? Have you apprehended the culprits? Ryan lunged toward the phone, his voice desperate. Isabella, it's me, Ryan. Tell the detective. I didn't steal it, right? You gave it to me, didn't you? We're husband and wife, aren't we? Please. His voice trembled. He was grasping at straws, even using the term husband and wife that he had so callously discarded. A long silence followed from the other end of the line. The silence was a noose tightening around Ryan's heart. Then, a low laugh was heard. A cold, mocking laugh. Husband and wife? You walk out after signing divorce papers, steal my credit card, and give it to your mistress, and now you want to play the husband card? Detective, I never gave that man permission to take my card. It was unequivocally stolen property. The fact that he then passed it on to his mistress to use is even more unforgivable. Isabella's clear, firm words froze the air in the room. Ryan's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I will be filing a formal complaint against both of them for grand larceny and fraud. I will not entertain any settlement. I request that they be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Click. The call ended with a brutal finality. The detective shrugged and looked at Ryan. You heard her. No settlement. You'd better get ready for a stay at Rikers. Ryan collapsed to the floor. He had no strength left in his legs. With trembling hands, he fumbled for his smartphone. His last resort. His mother. Mom, it's me. Help me. As soon as Sharon heard her son's choked sobs, she let out a piercing scream. Ryan, all pride gone, wept like a small child. Mom, you have to sell all the jewelry in the house. Get the emergency cash you have hidden. I need money for bail and a lawyer or I can't get out. I'm going to prison, Mom. In the corner of the room, the other detectives shook their heads and clicked their tongues. The reality of the man who dreamed of being a top star was a pathetic existence, forced to drain his aging mother's meager life savings. At that same moment, Isabella stood in her study, gazing at the distant New York skyline. In her hand was not a wine glass, but a cold bottle of mineral water. She needed to keep her mind clear. Behind her sat David, her publisher and longtime collaborator. He had the data recovered from Ryan's tablet projected onto a large monitor, his expression grim. Isabella, take a look at this. These guys were more vicious than we thought. This wasn't just about money. David's voice trembled with anger. Isabella turned and approached the monitor. An Excel spreadsheet was open on the screen. Title: Hospital Kickbacks and Admission Request List. And there, at the bottom of the list, was her name, Isabella Thompson. In the notes column, it read, Consent from guardian, spouse obtained. Request immediate severance of all external communication post. Admission. They were going to frame me as mentally ill and lock me away, Isabella said, her voice dry. The anger contained within it, however, was hot as lava. The supplements Ryan had so caringly given her each night, the herbal tea that made her feel lethargic, she now realized it was all part of a plot to make her appear listless and mentally unstable. He wasn't a husband, he was a zookeeper, trying to turn her into a cash cow. And look at this, David said, opening another folder. The manuscript for your next book, Murder for Two. A long list of sent emails appeared. The recipients were the heads of major television production companies. The sender was Madison Clark. The attached file was the manuscript Isabella had spent the last 3 years pouring her soul into. The title was the same, but the author's name had been changed to Madison Clark. They were going to launch her career with my manuscript. While I was locked away in a hospital, she was going to pretend to be a genius writer, stealing my words. Isabella caressed the monitor. It was agonizing to see the words that were her very soul, bound under the name of a stranger. This wasn't just theft. It was a calculated personality assassination, an attempt to erase the existence of Isabella K. and leave behind an empty shell for their own profit. Instead of tears, venom filled Isabella's eyes. She looked down at the city lights and whispered, They picked the wrong person. I've killed hundreds of criminals in my novels. Isabella looked at David and gave a calm directive. David, gather all of this. The messages with the hospital broker, the emails to the production companies, and that video of them laughing while planning their crimes in the hotel room, every last bit of it. What are you going to do with it? Give it to the police? No, the police are just the opening act. They'll try to find loopholes in the legal system. What I want is a social execution. I'm going to strip them bare, down to the bone, so they can never show their faces in public again. Isabella picked up an invitation from her desk. It was for the investor presentation that Ryan and Madison were planning. It was an internal, pre-release invitation, but with Isabella's resources, nothing was secret. Get me the president of the news division at the network and the head of the investigative reporting unit. Tell them I'm about to hand them the scoop of a lifetime. She paused. The title will be Genius Author Kay's Husband and the Diabolical Fraud. David, understanding her plan, nodded with a grim smile. Isabella's revenge was just getting started. A few days later, Ryan and Madison were released on bail. Sharon had to cash out her retirement savings and even sell a treasured gold ring to scrape the money together. But now, they were penniless. The lavish hotel suite was a distant dream. Their new reality was a cheap, musty motel on the outskirts of the city. The moment they entered the room, Madison threw her bag down and screamed. "This is infuriating. What is this? I trusted you, and now I have a criminal record and not a penny to my name. I want my old life back." She collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. Ryan slumped into a corner and lit a cigarette. In the smoke-filled room, his face was a mask of utter dejection. His pride was shattered, and his body ached from where his mother had hit him in frustration. But in his eyes, a flicker of greed remained. "Stop crying, Madison. It's not over yet." Ryan waved his smartphone at her. An email notification was on the screen. It was from a TV production company. Murder for 2 manuscript. It has passed the first round of review. We would like to schedule a meeting to discuss further. Look at this. The production company got back to us. The manuscript I sent under your name, they loved it. If we can secure this investment, the signing bonus alone will be in the high 6 figures. If the show's a hit, millions will roll in. Madison's sobbing stopped abruptly. She snatched the phone from Ryan's hand, her swollen eyes scanning the screen. It was true. Isabella's manuscript was just that good. Even with a different name on it, it had captivated the industry professionals. "Hey, is this for real? Can we really bounce back from this?" "Of course we can. Who do you think I am?" "I'm Ryan Thompson, the actor. All we have to do is nail this investor presentation, and our lives will be completely turned around. We'll make so much money that reporting us will be the biggest mistake that bitch Isabella ever made. And then we'll lock her away for good, and no one will ever know the truth." Ryan's eyes glinted with a mad light. He still believed he could control the situation, oblivious to the fact that Isabella was watching his every move. "You're right. Let's do this, and let's do it right," Madison agreed, her own greed reignited. "Even if we have to borrow from a loan shark, we can pay it back instantly once we get the investment." In the dreary motel room, the two embraced and giggled like conspirators, a pair of ghouls dancing at the bottom of a well. "Where should we hold the presentation?" Ryan mused. "Let's go for the best. That's how you get people to believe. How about the Starlight Ballroom at the Grand Astoria Hotel? We can announce our engagement at the same time. Genius author and top star's wedding of the century. What a headline, right?" Ryan was already getting high on his own delusions. He immediately called a loan shark he knew, a man named Vinny. "Vinny? It's me. I need some cash. Fast." Yeah, it's a sure thing. "I'm about to land a major TV series. For collateral, I'll put up my life and every cent of the contract money that's coming in." He was booking a first-class ticket on a bullet train to hell, using his own soul as payment. After hanging up, he grinned at Madison. "Okay, the funding is secured. Now all we have to do is succeed," right in Isabella's face. But at that very moment, the reservation details for the ballroom were being delivered in real time to Isabella's tablet. Looking at the screen David had handed her, a cold smile played on her lips. "The Starlight Ballroom. I like their choice of venue. The place that was supposed to be my funeral will now become their grave." Isabella walked to her closet. Hanging there was a pristine white pantsuit she had bought for an award ceremony but never wore. It looked sharp and formidable, like a suit of armor. Stroking the fabric, she whispered, "I don't need an invitation. I'm the host of this party." Outside, large raindrops began to fall. The calm before the storm was over. A clap of thunder shook the New York sky, heralding the bloody rain that was about to fall. The prey was walking into the trap of its own accord, and the hunter had her finger on the trigger. A week later, on a Saturday night, the Starlight Ballroom on the top floor of the Grand Astoria Hotel was the very definition of opulence. A massive chandelier with thousands of crystals scattered blinding light across the room. The red carpet leading from the entrance was flanked by extravagant displays of the finest flowers. All of this splendor was a facade, a mirage created by the $200,000 Ryan had borrowed from the loan shark Vinny by signing away his soul. Hidden beneath the scent of flowers was the stench of decaying ambition and a mountain of debt. In the dressing room, Ryan adjusted the collar of his tuxedo in the mirror. His face was flushed with excitement. This wasn't just an investor meeting. It was the day he would unveil Isabella's manuscript under Madison's name and simultaneously announce their engagement, cementing their image as the perfect power couple, a top star and a genius author. Looking at his reflection, he murmured with satisfaction, "Perfect. Tonight, I am the star. I have a completely different aura than when I was with that gloomy woman Isabella." He ran a hand through his gelled hair one more time and let out a contented laugh. However, in the adjacent bridal suite, Madison's face was pale. She was biting her nails, her leg bouncing nervously. A glossy booklet, the proposal for the series, lay on her lap, but she couldn't bring herself to open it. "Ryan, what am I going to do? What if the reporters ask me questions? I haven't even read the whole novel," she whispered, her voice trembling like a frightened animal. She knew if she was asked about the protagonist's psychological development or the meaning of the foreshadowing, she would be completely lost. Ryan clicked his tongue in annoyance, came over, and wrapped an arm around her. "Hey Madison, don't be like that. All you have to do is smile. If any difficult questions come up, I'll handle them." I'll just say, Madison is so deeply immersed in her work that she's still emotionally processing it. They'll all fall for it. Who do you think I am? I'm a master actor. Despite his baseless confidence, Madison's anxiety didn't subside, but the die was cast. The murmur of voices from the ballroom was growing louder. Reporters, bloggers, and investors, all drawn by the scent of money, were filling the hall. At the entrance, Sharon, Ryan's mother, was flitting about in a dazzling, gaudy sequin dress. The flashy pink fabric, bought on credit, shimmered under the lights. She handed out small gifts to the guests, boasting loudly, "Oh, welcome, welcome. My future daughter-in-law, Madison, she writes the most incredible stories. The networks are all fighting to sign her. And my son, Ryan, once he gets this lead role, it's only a matter of time before he goes international." She strutted around as if she were the queen of the ball. Some of the guests, neighbors from her old building, whispered behind her back. Didn't she used to do nothing but badmouth her last daughter-in-law? How can she be so shameless, with her son getting remarried so soon after a divorce? I heard they're being chased by loan sharks. But Sharon heard none of it. The only sounds that reached her ears were the clinking of champagne glasses and the false praise for her son. At the same time, in the hotel's underground parking garage, a blacked-out SUV glided into a private VIP spot. A car door opened, and the sound of a high heel stepping elegantly onto the concrete broke the silence. It was Isabella. She looked nothing like the melancholic woman Ryan remembered. A perfectly tailored white pantsuit accentuated her slender figure, and her sleek dark hair was styled with a charismatic edge. The bold red on her lips was as intense as fresh blood. Tapping the earpiece she wore, she asked in a low voice, "Are we ready?" From the other end, David's reassuring voice came through. "Perfect. Our engineers have control of the broadcast room, and the security team is in place. There's no escape route. The network president is here, and he's very excited about the materials I sent. He's ready for the biggest scoop of his career." A cold smile formed on Isabella's lips. She opened a tablet and checked the screen. A live feed from the ballroom's security cameras played. On the screen, Ryan was shaking hands with guests, laughing as if he owned the world. "Laugh all you want now, Ryan. That laughter will turn to screams in just a moment." Isabella kept her finger hovering over the upload button on the tablet as she walked toward the elevator. 4 imposing bodyguards followed her like shadows. She was a warrior queen, and this was her army, marching into battle. Inside the Starlight Ballroom, the MC's powerful voice boomed. "And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Please welcome our stars of the evening, the couple of the century, top star Ryan Thompson and genius author Madison Clark." With a swell of orchestral music, the massive doors swung open. Ryan and Madison entered, arm in arm. Ryan waved to the storm of camera flashes, but Madison's legs were weak, and she practically clung to him as they walked. The crowd cheered, but some watched with cold, knowing eyes. At the front table sat the network president and the heads of real production companies. They had all received the evidence from Isabella and knew this was a fraudulent spectacle. The president whispered to the man next to him, "He's got the acting part down, I'll give him that. Look at the nerve on that guy." Ryan and Madison reached the center of the stage. Ryan took the microphone, feigning tears of emotion. "Thank you all for being here tonight. The truth is, this work, Murder for Two, is a story that my beloved wife-to-be, Madison, wrote with her blood, sweat, and tears, thinking of me. As she wrote through the night, I was by her side, providing inspiration, sometimes making her coffee, and watching this masterpiece come to life. Ryan's lies flowed like water. The man who had spent Isabella's writing nights out drinking and carousing was now taking credit for her suffering, playing the part of the devoted partner. It was breathtakingly audacious. Like the protagonist of this story, I am prepared to dedicate my life to Madison. And so, tonight, I want to pledge my eternal love to her in front of all of you. Ryan turned to Madison with a passionate gaze. Madison forced a smile and nodded, but her eyes darted around nervously. She felt a chilling sensation, as if someone in the crowd was staring daggers at her. Behind the ballroom, a door was cracked open just enough for Isabella to watch the stage. Her eyes were cold and still. As she watched the nauseating play unfold, she gripped her tablet tightly. Love? Inspiration? The only things you ever gave me were insults and debt. Isabella watched as Ryan pulled a ring box from his pocket. It was time for the proposal. The moment he would pledge his fake love with a fake diamond ring was the exact moment Isabella had been waiting for. Ryan dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped and applauded. He opened the box and recited his prepared line. Will you marry me? I promise you a love as unchanging as this diamond. Madison feigned overwhelming emotion, covering her mouth with her hands. Just as she was about to say, Yes, I will, Isabella spoke a short, clear command into her earpiece microphone. Now, open the doors. Simultaneously with her command, the tightly sealed ballroom doors burst open with a deafening boom. The startled guests all turned around. At the same moment, the brilliant lights of the ballroom blinked out, plunging the room into darkness. The starlight ballroom was instantly filled with silence and fear. Turn on the lights, someone shouted. As the confused murmurs grew louder, a jarring electronic noise blared from the speakers. After a screech of static, the large monitor behind the stage lit up. But what appeared on the screen was not a beautiful wedding photo. It was a horrifying title card, with black letters on a blood-red background. Ryan T. Cloud Auto Backup. Folder name. Wife, Manipulation, and Institutionalization. Plan. Ryan, still on one knee, went pale as a corpse. He scrambled to his feet, pointing at the monitor and screaming, Shut it off! Shut it off now! What is this? But it was too late. The video had already started to play. In the darkness, the monitor was the only source of light, exposing the couple's ugly true selves for all to see. Isabella stood in the darkness, watching the spectacle, and began her slow walk toward the stage. The click-clack of her heels echoed like a countdown to execution. The jarring static on the massive monitor gave way to an image of the two people who, just moments before, had been pretending to pledge their love on stage. Now, they were seen in their most vulgar form. The video background was a seedy motel room with tacky, floral wallpaper. Ryan and Madison, clad only in underwear, were leaning against the headboard, cackling. Instead of champagne flutes, they held cans of cheap beer, and a stream of filth poured from their mouths. Yeah, all we have to do is drug that gloomy bitch and shove her in a closed ward, and it's over. I've already bribed the head doctor. Once she's in, he'll cut off all her contact with the outside world. You're a genius, seriously. So, did you get the PIN for her royalty account? Of course. I used her fingerprint to unlock her phone while she was sleeping and transferred everything. Once your debut novel is a hit, we'll be rolling in it. That bitch Isabella can rot in a psych ward for the rest of her life. The voices in the video were more chilling than any demon's whisper. He was bragging about a plan to lock away his wife of 5 years, the woman who had supported him, and embezzle her money. Madison, hanging on his neck, showered him with kisses and cooed in agreement. Oh, you're so hot when you're evil. I'm really going to be a famous author. God, I can't wait for that woman to just disappear. As the video played, the Starlight Ballroom was so silent you could hear a pin drop. Guests covered their mouths in disbelief. The investors' faces turned crimson with rage. A helpful subtitle at the bottom of the monitor displayed. Source: Ryan Thompson's Cloud Auto, backup folder, complete with the date and time of the recording, down to the second. It was irrefutable proof. Turn it off, I said, turn it off, who's doing this? Ryan thrashed his arms wildly, trying in vain to hide the monitor, but his small frame was no match for the giant screen of truth. He pointed and screamed at the broadcast booth, but behind the soundproof glass, the technicians simply crossed their arms and looked down on him with derision. Madison collapsed in a heap on the floor. Her legs had given out. The hem of her white wedding dress began to collect the dust and grime of the stage. She covered her ears with trembling hands, but the voices from the monitor, the cackling laughter, seemed to echo in her head like an auditory hallucination, tearing at her eardrums. It was then that a single, powerful spotlight cut through the darkness from the back of the ballroom, landing squarely on the stage. It was a light as sharp and blinding as the gaze of a god coming to pass judgment. And along that path of light, the clicking of heels grew louder. It was Isabella. Dressed in her flawless white pantsuit, she held a microphone in one hand and a thick sheaf of documents in the other as she walked slowly forward. Her entrance was stunning. A commanding charisma and a cold fury radiated from her. The guests parted for her like the Red Sea. "Hello, Ryan. And you, Madison?" Isabella brought the microphone to her lips, and her calm, low voice enveloped the entire hall. Ryan stumbled backward as if he'd seen a ghost. His eyes were wide with terror. Isabella, what are you doing here?" Instead of answering, Isabella strode onto the stage. She stood between Ryan and Madison and offered the stunned guests a relaxed smile. It was a beautiful smile, and an incredibly cruel one. "My apologies for the late introduction. I am the woman these two protagonists of our little drama tried to have killed, and I am also the person you have all been looking for. The veiled author, Kay. My name is Isabella K. Thompson." Isabella's bombshell statement sent a shockwave through the room. Reporters went into a frenzy, their camera flashes firing relentlessly. With each flash, Ryan's face grew more ashen, and Madison's turned as white as a sheet. "This," Isabella threw the stack of documents she was holding into the air. Dozens of pages snowflaked down onto the stage. They were the original manuscript of Murder for Two, the copyright registration certificate, and a chemical analysis of the drugs Ryan had been giving her. "This is the analysis of the psychotropic drugs my husband was feeding me to make me appear mentally unstable. And that novel she claims to have written? It is my work, which I began writing 3 years ago and for which I hold the registered copyright. All the evidence is right here." Before Isabella had even finished her sentence, one of the investors from the front row leaped to his feet, shouting. He was the president of a firm that had promised a massive investment. "You damn con artists! Give me back my money!" The president grabbed Ryan by the collar and shook him violently. Ryan choked and gagged. Other investors surged forward, and the stage instantly devolved into a chaotic brawl. "It's a misunderstanding. I didn't know. She made me do it." Ryan, desperate to save himself, pointed at Madison. The love he had pledged to give his life for just moments ago was gone. His ugly, base instinct to save himself at any cost was laid bare. Hearing this, Madison's eyes went wild. She leaped up from the floor and lunged at Ryan. "You worthless bastard! You're the one who put me up to this! You're the one who promised to make me an author, to let me sit on a throne of money! You started this!" Madison raked her long nails across Ryan's face, drawing blood. Ryan fought back, grabbing a handful of her hair. "You crazy bitch! Don't you dare pin this on me! You were all for it when I said we'd split the profits." They tangled together, rolling on the floor. Ryan's tuxedo was torn, and Madison's wedding dress was smeared with dirt. In their struggle, they crashed into the champagne tower they had so carefully constructed. With a tremendous crash, hundreds of glasses shattered, and a fountain of champagne rained down on their heads, the bubbly foam ironically anointing their sordid fight. "Ag, let go of my hair," Madison shrieked, biting Ryan's hand with enough force to draw blood. She ripped the proposal ring from her finger. The diamond was a cheap cubic zirconia. "You can have this cheap piece of junk back. I was a fool to ever believe a man like you." She threw the ring in Ryan's face. It bounced off his forehead and clattered to the floor. "I'm not marrying you. The engagement is off. Get out of my sight." Madison's screams echoed through the ballroom. This entire scene was being broadcast live around the world by bloggers and streamers. The chat feeds exploded with comments. "Real-life soap opera. This is justice. Send them both to prison." Isabella had retreated to a corner of the chaotic stage, watching them with her arms crossed. Not a single drop of champagne or blood had touched her white suit. She looked down on them like a Roman emperor in the Colosseum, watching beasts tear each other apart with an emotionless gaze. Her eyes said it all. Yes, fight more. Show each other just how low you can go. This is the ending you deserve. Below the stage, Sharon was on her hands and knees, sobbing. Seeing her pride and joy of a son and her future daughter-in-law wrestling like dogs had sent her over the edge. "Oh my God, what have I done to deserve this? I chose the wrong daughter-in-law, and my family is ruined. That woman is a devil, a devil." Sharon continued to blame Isabella, writhing on the floor, but no one paid her any attention. People just clicked their tongues and walked around her. Her expensive dress was torn, her undergarments showing, but she had forgotten all sense of shame. consumed by her hysterics. Isabella glanced at Sharon for a moment, with a look that was beyond contempt. She then turned her gaze back to Ryan, who was now panting on the floor, covered in blood and grime. Their eyes met. A flicker of terror, despair, and a plea for mercy crossed Ryan's face. He parted his lips to say something, but Isabella coldly turned her back on him. Well, that's the end of Act 1. Isabella tapped her earpiece. David, begin Act 2. On her cue, the heavy thud of footsteps began to sound from the entrance of the ballroom. These weren't just security guards. The full force of the law had arrived to deliver judgment. Ryan and Madison's true hell was just beginning. NYPD, nobody move! A commanding voice cut through the chaos in the Starlight Ballroom. Ryan and Madison, who had been wrestling like animals, froze as if a pause button had been hit. The heavy doors of the ballroom swung wide, and a phalanx of uniformed police officers flooded in. The crunch of their boots on the broken champagne glasses was the only sound, an ominous premonition of the shattering of the rest of their lives. Ryan stared blankly at the officers. His lip was bleeding, his tuxedo was in tatters, his hair a mess. The man who had been playing the part of a top star just an hour ago was gone. In his place was a pathetic, trembling criminal. The lead detective stood before Ryan and Madison. He pulled out arrest warrants and held them up for them to see. Their crimes were listed in damning detail: grand larceny, fraud, copyright infringement, conspiracy to commit unlawful imprisonment. Ryan Thompson and Madison Clark, you are under arrest. You have the right to an attorney. No, it's not me. This is all a misunderstanding. Ryan shrieked like a madman, stumbling backward. But the officers were unmoved, grabbing both of his arms. Click. The cold, metallic sound of handcuffs snapping around Ryan's wrists. The chilling sensation sent a violent shudder through his entire body. This is a dream. It can't be real. Why am I being handcuffed? I'm supposed to be signing a contract for a leading role tomorrow. His desperate gaze landed on Isabella, standing with her arms crossed at the edge of the stage. She remained immaculate, regal, looking down on the entire situation. To Ryan, she suddenly seemed like his only lifeline. Isabella! Isabella! Help me! Ryan tore himself from the officer's grasp and crawled on the floor toward her. He grabbed the hem of her white trousers with his blood-stained hands, the ultimate picture of degradation. Isabella, I was wrong. I was crazy. That woman made me do it. You know I only love you, right? Please, drop the charges. I don't want to go to prison. He begged, tears and snot streaming down his face. They were not tears of remorse, but the crocodile tears of a man terrified of punishment. Isabella looked down at the sniveling creature at her feet with an expression of utter disgust, like looking at an insect. Slowly, with an elegant grace, she moved her foot. Crunch. The sharp point of her stiletto heel ground down onto the back of Ryan's hand. Gah! Ryan screamed, trying to pull his hand away, but Isabella pressed down harder. A chillingly beautiful smile played on her lips. She leaned down and whispered in his ear, her voice low and venomous. You don't get to call me Isabella. You are nothing more than an extra in my life story. A pathetic criminal who gets a very ugly, very deserved ending. When Isabella finally removed her heel, Ryan cradled his hand, writhing on the floor. His last shred of pride had been crushed beneath her shoe. Nearby, Madison was also being apprehended by officers. As the handcuffs were snapped on her wrists, she began to thrash and curse. This is invalid. I'm the victim here. Ryan made me do everything. He just told me to write. It's not fair. Until the very end, Madison refused to admit her guilt, trying desperately to shift all the blame to Ryan. A detective sighed and pulled her arm. Be quiet. We have mountains of evidence that you are a primary conspirator. You can tell it to the judge. No, I won't go. Let me go. Madison's wedding dress was now as filthy as a floor rag. The woman who had dreamed of a glamorous author's debut was gone, replaced by a raving lunatic being dragged away, a scene captured in its entirety by the live-streaming cameras. Just then, Sharon leaped up from the floor below the stage, screaming. Seeing her precious son in handcuffs had made her lose what little sanity she had left. No! My son? Where are you taking my son? Let him go. Sharon clung to a police officer's arm. The officer tried to gently remove her, but the old woman's grip was surprisingly strong. She clawed at his collar, thrashing wildly. What did my Ryan do? It was all her, that wife of his. She planned all this. You should be arresting her. Not my innocent boy. Sharon pointed a trembling finger at Isabella, but Isabella didn't even flinch. Instead, it was another group who stepped forward. the men in black suits who had been waiting in the corner of the ballroom, the loan sharks. Hey, old lady, I don't think you're in a position to be blaming other people right now. Vinny, the head loan shark, said with a sneer. He signaled his men, who swarmed forward, pulled Sharon off the officer, and shoved her roughly to the ground. She landed hard, her fine dress getting torn and dirtied. The humiliation of her fall, exposed to the judgmental stares of onlookers and the flashing cameras of the press, was a far cry from her earlier arrogance. The murmurs of the guests were audible. Look at her. The son's a con artist, and the mother's being chased by loan sharks. What a family. Serves her right for how she treated her daughter-in-law. Humiliation burned on Sharon's face as she cried on the floor. Vinny shoved a loan document in her face. Your son's going to jail. Who's going to pay back the debt? The guarantor, that's who. You, old lady. You're not leaving here until you sign over the deed to your house. What? The deed? No, that's all I have left. Then you can die for your son instead, the loan shark snarled, surrounding her. Sharon trembled with terror. The son she had believed in so completely was already in the back of a police car, gone. She turned her face toward Isabella, a last, desperate plea. Isabella, please, help me, I was wrong, please. Sharon banged her head on the floor, begging for her life. But Isabella simply turned her back, her posture resolute. There was no mercy, no forgiveness left. Isabella approached the lead detective. She took a small flash drive from her pocket and handed it to him. Detective, here is additional evidence. The original data from the tablet and all the audio recordings. Please ensure they pay for every single one of their crimes. Rest assured, ma'am, with this much evidence, there's no escape for them. We will handle it. The detective replied with a firm nod. Isabella nodded and walked towards the exit of the ballroom. David draped a coat over her shoulders. The warmth was a comforting sensation against her chilled body. Let's go, Isabella. The air in here is toxic. Yes, David. Let's get out of here. They walked out of the ballroom side by side. Behind them, the scene was a tableau from hell. Sharon's wails as she was manhandled by the loan sharks, the angry shouts of defrauded investors, the crunch of broken glass. But to Isabella, it was all distant noise. In the hotel lobby, a horde of reporters was waiting. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Isabella didn't flinch. She held her head high and looked directly into the cameras. Her eyes said, I am not a victim. I am a victor. As she slipped into a waiting black sedan, the door closed, shutting out the clamor of the world. In the quiet, comfortable interior, Isabella let out a long, deep breath. It felt as if a thorn that had been lodged deep in her heart for years had finally been removed. David started the engine and looked at her in the rearview mirror. You okay? Isabella gazed out the window. The red flashing lights of the patrol car were receding in the distance. It felt as if her past, her pain, and all her regrets were being carried away with them. Better than okay, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. It feels like I'm finally cured of a 10-year-long ailment. David laughed at her joke, and Isabella laughed with him. It was a genuine, unforced laugh, the first one in a very long time. The car glided out of the hotel and onto the open road. The night sky was full of stars, and Isabella's future seemed just as bright. The real story of Isabella Kay was just beginning. In the solemn, high-ceilinged chamber of the New York County Supreme Court, the air was thick with tension. Under the pale fluorescent lights, the two figures in the defendant's box were a pathetic sight. Ryan and Madison, who just weeks ago had been preening in a tuxedo and a wedding dress, were now clad in drab prison jumpsuits, their names replaced by inmate numbers. In just a short time, they seemed to have aged a decade. Ryan's face was sallow, his cheekbones sharp, while Madison's lank hair was tied back harshly. They avoided each other's gaze. The love they once professed now curdled into pure hatred. The defendant, Ryan Thompson, not only stole from his spouse but conspired with his mistress to infringe on copyright, systematically drugged the victim to induce a psychological break, and attempted to abuse the legal system for an unlawful commitment. The depravity of these actions is extreme. The prosecutor's voice boomed through the courtroom. He methodically detailed their crimes, and with each new charge, Ryan shrank further into his seat, while gasps and hisses came from the gallery. Therefore, the state recommends a sentence of 7 years for defendant Ryan Thompson and 5 years for defendant Madison Clark. 7 years. The number struck Ryan like a physical blow. His acting career wasn't just over, it was being buried. He looked desperately at his court-appointed lawyer, who just shook his head. Ryan's so-called letter of remorse had backfired spectacularly. It was discovered he had paid another inmate to write it, and the judge was not amused by the lack of genuine contrition. The court calls its next witness, Isabella K. Thompson. The door to the witness stand opened, and Isabella entered. She wore a simple, elegant black suit. Her face was free of makeup, but her expression was more composed and dignified than ever. As she took the oath, Ryan couldn't bring himself to look up. The woman he had tried to crush was now the most powerful person in the room, the key witness to his downfall. "Miss Thompson," the judge began, "can you describe the harm the defendants caused you?" Isabella took a breath. Her voice was steady, but her words sent a shock through the courtroom. "For 5 years, Ryan Thompson subjected me to psychological abuse, chipping away at my self-esteem and isolating me. But when I discovered that the supplements he was giving me were actually sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication, the feeling was not the sadness of losing a husband, but the terror of realizing I had been living with a monster. They tried to lock me away, steal my work, my very soul, to fuel their greed. This was not just fraud. It was an attempted murder of the spirit." Her testimony ended, and a ripple of sympathy and outrage spread through the gallery. Even the judge's stoic expression was etched with deep furrows of disgust. "Final statements," the judge ordered. Ryan shot to his feet, a blubbering mess. "Your Honor, I didn't know. Madison, she made me do it. I was blinded by love. I'm so sorry. I just want to die. Please, just give me one more chance." He was pathetic to the last. Madison glared at him in disbelief. "Don't you dare. You're the one who seduced me with promises of making me a star. Your Honor, he's the mastermind. I was just used." Their bickering in the courtroom was the final nail in their coffin. The judge had seen enough. The gavel came down with swift finality. Defendant Ryan Thompson, showing no remorse and having orchestrated these heinous acts, is sentenced to 5 years in state prison. Defendant Madison Clark, as an active and willing participant, is sentenced to 4 years. The sound of the gavel echoed 3 times, a death sentence for their lives as they knew them. Ryan's legs buckled, and he collapsed. 5 years. 5 years in prison. Madison let out a piercing shriek. Marshals moved in and hauled them to their feet, dragging their miserable, weeping forms from the courtroom. Sharon, who was sitting in the back row, did not escape judgment. She was convicted of accessory to fraud and sentenced to 1 year of probation and 120 hours of community service. While she avoided jail time, she was now a convicted felon. For a woman whose entire identity was built on boasting about her son, this was a fate worse than death. But her hell was just beginning. Outside the courthouse, it wasn't a warm home waiting for her, but Vinny and his crew. "Hey, old lady, sentence is over. Time to pay up." They dragged her away and forced her to sell her home. After the debt was partially paid, she was left with nothing. Every piece of furniture, every treasured possession, was repossessed. The home was covered in red seizure notices, a stark testament to her greedy life. She ended up in a dingy, roach-infested apartment, a fallen queen forced to live in the shadows. Isabella won a complete victory in civil court as well. The court froze all of Ryan's assets and seized everything he had ever bought with her money, down to the last designer watch he had gifted Madison. The items were auctioned off. Isabella didn't want a single cent of that dirty money. Instead, she announced at a press conference that all the proceeds, along with her future royalties from Murder for Two and the damages awarded, would be donated to a legal aid fund for female victims of crime. The press called it a noble act. She had transformed her pain into a force for social good. She was no longer a reclusive writer, but a celebrated, powerful female leader. In a cold prison cell, Ryan watched the news on an old television. Isabella was on screen, radiant and beautiful. The confident way she answered reporters' questions made her seem like a stranger. "The thing that supported me through the darkest moments," she was saying, "was the power of the truth." Ryan clutched his chest. A wave of regret washed over him, not for his actions, but for the lost money and fame. "That was supposed to be my seat. All the money she earned should have been mine." He would never truly repent, only suffer, a fisherman forever mourning the big one that got away. Madison's fate was no different. In the women's prison, she was completely isolated. Her family and friends had abandoned her. She was left with nothing but an inmate number and a future defined by her crimes. Every night, she was haunted by nightmares of the ballroom, of the public humiliation, a punishment that would last for 4 long years. 5 years passed. New York City's skyline grew even more dazzling, but shadows always lingered beneath the light. On the set of the nation's top late-night talk show, the bright lights were focused on one person, Isabella Kay. She was even more poised and graceful than she had been at the trial 5 years prior. "So, Miss Kay, we hear your latest novel is being adapted into a Hollywood blockbuster. That's an incredible achievement," the host gushed. Isabella smiled, a genuine smile that came from a place of inner peace. "I was lucky. That book was written during the most difficult time of my life. I didn't realize it then, but even the darkness became fuel for my writing." The audience erupted in applause. The pain of her past was no longer a scar, but a medal of honor. At that same moment, the heavy iron gate of a state correctional facility creaked open. Ryan Thompson, 5 years older and a lifetime more broken, stepped out into the world. The autumn wind bit at his neck. He looked around. No one was there to meet him. The man who had dreamed of being a star was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out shell of a man with thinning hair and deep wrinkles. With a few crumpled dollars from his prison work-release job, he bought a cup of instant noodles at a convenience store. As he sat on the curb, slurping the noodles, the steam blurred his vision. He didn't know if it was tears or his runny nose dripping into the broth. He was a homeless man. The realization hit him hard. He thought of the warm meals Isabella used to make, the crisp shirts she ironed, the trusting look in her eyes. You only know what you have when it's gone. Meanwhile, at a local food pantry, a stooped old woman stood in a long line. It was Sharon. Her face was a shriveled raisin, her nails caked with dirt. As she received her meager portion of food, the news played on a small TV in the corner. Isabella's smiling face filled the screen as the anchor announced her latest multi-million-dollar donation. Sharon's spoon froze. That was my daughter-in-law," she rasped. "Yeah, right, lady," the man next to her grumbled. "And I'm the president's best friend. Just eat your food." "It's true," Sharon wailed, tears plopping into her tray. "I was the one who was crazy. I kicked away my own good fortune." But no one believed the rants of the crazy old woman. Her punishment was to live out her days with the full, agonizing knowledge of what she had thrown away. That night, Ryan was wandering near a construction site, hungry and desperate. A sleek, top-of-the-line convertible pulled up to a red light. Behind the wheel was David. In the passenger seat, laughing brightly, was Isabella. She looked freer and happier than he had ever seen her. "Isabella?" Ryan stumbled into the street, his mind blank, his feet moving on their own. "It's me, Ryan." He waved his arms, a grimy, pathetic figure. Isabella turned her head. Her eyes, clear and calm, landed on him. For a heart-stopping moment, Ryan dared to hope. Maybe she'll stop. Maybe she'll take pity on me, buy me a meal. Maybe she'll forgive me, take me back. But Isabella's expression didn't change. It wasn't coldness. It was complete and utter indifference. She looked at him the way one looks at a crack in the pavement or a piece of trash on the street. Then, slowly, she lowered her designer sunglasses, physically and metaphorically blocking him from her world forever. The light turned green. David hit the accelerator, and the car sped away, leaving Ryan choking in a cloud of exhaust. "Wait, don't go! Look at me, I'm here!" he cried, chasing after the car until his legs tangled and he crashed onto the asphalt. The pain in his scraped knee was nothing compared to the agony in his soul. He wasn't just chasing a car. He was chasing the brilliant life he had so foolishly thrown away. In the car, Isabella didn't look back. She turned up the volume on the stereo, and a smooth jazz melody filled the air. David took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You okay?" Isabella looked at him and smiled, a radiant, genuine smile. "I feel great." She leaned her head back, the wind whipping through her hair as they sped across the Brooklyn Bridge. The city lights twinkled like a million stars laid out just for her. The nightmares were over. The villains of her story were living out their own personal hells, a punishment far more fitting than anything she could have devised. She knew it now. The greatest revenge is not to destroy your enemies, but to build a life so beautiful and so happy that you forget they ever existed.